The night wind moved softly across the open land, carrying the smell of dry grass and old memories. Two strangers stood on a wooden porch, hearts pounding with fear and hope at the same time. Neither of them knew it yet, but one quiet act of kindness was about to change both of their lives forever. Sometimes kindness doesn't arrive with loud words or grand promises. Sometimes it comes as a whisper in the dark, spoken by someone just as broken as you are, reaching out not to take, but to give. Before we begin this heartfelt story, take a moment to support Soul Tales. If stories of kindness, hope, and human connection touch your heart, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps these stories reach more souls who need them. The ranch sat far from town, surrounded by wide fields and endless sky. It belonged to Thomas Whitaker, a man in his early 40s whose shoulders carried more weight than just years of hard work. He had once been known as a gentle husband and a laughing father. But that was before sickness took his wife, and a winter fever took his young son not long after. Since then, Thomas lived like a ghost among his cattle and fences. He spoke only when needed, ate alone, and slept in a house that echoed with silence. The land was alive, but his heart felt buried. In town, people whispered about him. Some said he was kind and broken. Others said he was proud and distant. Few truly knew the depth of his loneliness. Hundreds of miles away, Eleanor Brooks folded a worn letter with shaking hands. She was a black woman in her late 20s, recently widowed herself. Her husband had died in a factory accident, leaving her with grief, debt, and nowhere safe to go. In the city, doors closed quickly for women like her, especially those alone. When she saw the advertisement for a mail-order bride, she hesitated. It felt strange, even humiliating, but hunger and fear have a way of pushing people toward hard choices. The letter promised honesty, respect, and a safe home on a ranch out west. No flowery words, no false romance, just truth. After weeks of thought and prayer, Eleanor wrote back. The train ride was long and lonely. Eleanor watched towns blur past the window, wondering if she was making the worst mistake of her life. She carried only one suitcase and a heart full of guarded hope. When the train finally stopped, Thomas stood waiting on the platform, hat in his hands. He looked older than his age. His eyes were kind but tired. When he saw Eleanor step down, he froze for a moment. Not because she was black, he had known that from her letter, but because she looked just as afraid as he felt. They exchanged polite words, nothing more. The ride to the ranch passed in near silence, broken only by the sound of hooves and wind. That first evening they sat at opposite ends of the dinner table. The food was simple, the air was heavy. Eleanor felt like a guest who had overstayed before even unpacking. After dinner, Thomas walked her to the porch. The stars were bright, and the night felt endless. "I won't lie to you," he said quietly. "I don't know how to be a husband anymore." Eleanor nodded. "I don't know how to start over either." There was a long pause. Then Thomas spoke again, barely louder than the wind. "You need a home," he whispered, "and I need a wife, not for comfort, but for kindness, if that's something you can give." Eleanor felt tears rise to her eyes. No one had spoken to her with such honesty in a long time. She nodded slowly. "Kindness is something I still have." Their marriage began not with love, but with respect. Life on the ranch was hard, but honest. Eleanor rose before sunrise, helping with meals, learning the rhythm of ranch life. She treated the house not as a temporary shelter, but as a home. She cleaned gently, as if the walls themselves were wounded. Thomas watched from a distance at first. He noticed how she spoke softly to the animals, how she hummed while cooking, how she never complained even when her hands blistered. One afternoon, Eleanor found a small wooden horse hidden in a drawer. She realized it belonged to Thomas's son. Instead of asking questions, she placed it carefully on the mantel, dusted and honored. That night Thomas noticed. His voice cracked as he said, "Thank you." It was the first time he spoke about his child. From that day on, something shifted. Thomas began to talk more. Eleanor listened without trying to fix him. She simply stayed present. That too was kindness. The town, however, was not as gentle. When Eleanor visited the general store, conversations stopped. Some eyes were curious, others were cold. Whispers followed her footsteps. But Eleanor held her head high. She greeted people kindly, even when kindness was not returned. Over time, her patience softened a few hearts. She helped an injured neighbor cook meals. She taught children songs in the churchyard. She smiled even when it hurt. Thomas saw it all. He saw how she carried dignity like armor and kindness like light. One evening, after a long day, Thomas confessed something he had never said aloud. "I was afraid," he admitted, "afraid this would feel like a business deal." Eleanor smiled gently. It started that way. But kindness turns agreements into family. Slowly love grew, not the loud, fiery kind, but the steady warmth of shared days and quiet understanding. They laughed over burnt bread. They prayed together during storms. They learned each other's silences. One spring morning, Thomas placed wildflowers on the table. Eleanor looked up, surprised. "I don't whisper anymore," he said softly. "I want to say it clearly. I'm grateful for you." Tears filled Eleanor's eyes. "I'm grateful too." Years passed. The ranch flourished. The house filled with warmth again, and one day the sound of a child's laughter returned, echoing across the fields. People in town stopped whispering. Instead, they spoke of the couple who changed their community with simple kindness. Thomas and Eleanor never claimed to be heroes. They were just two broken souls who chose compassion over fear. In the end, their story reminds us of something powerful. Kindness doesn't always begin with love. Sometimes, love is born because kindness refused to leave. If this story touched your heart, remember this. One gentle choice, one open heart, can transform not just a life, but a future. Go forward today and spread kindness wherever you stand.